On day 8, we continue reading with the chapter Blessings Always. I'm not leaving my Sangat. It was a normal day. I was heading off for a round of golf in the morning, sometimes before 6 o'clock, when I got a call from Singla uncle. Guruji was not well, he told me, adding that the Gurgaon Sangat should pray for him. All kinds of thoughts overwhelmed my mind. Guruji is our Lord and Master. He takes care of us. We are because of him. He's not well and we are supposed to pray for him. It somehow did not add up. The reversal implicit in the situation made me think it was some kind of a test Guruji had thrown at us. I came home and sent a message to Gurgaon Sangat via SMS. Each devotee, I later came to know, quietly did job. This continued for around half an hour to 45 minutes. I got another phone call and was told that there was no need for the job to continue anymore. I thought maybe the test was over. I sent a message to devotees effectively saying, all is well, please stop praying. After some time, I got a call, this time from a close friend and devotee, who just said, Bhaiji, Guruji is gone. Before I could latch on to the meaning, he added that Guruji was no more. I was standing next to the kitchen with my wife. I turned to her and repeated the words. She rushed to me, held me in tight hug and said, what will happen to us? Numb to the bones, all I could mumble was, I have no idea. It was life's worst moment. Everything was lost. I was unable to come to terms with what I had been told. Then I got a follow-up message that Maharaj is at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. I rushed there. Already word had spread and Sangat had started gathering there. There was no need to ask anyone. Their faces said it all. I remember Guruji's Sangat scattered around outside in tears. Everyone was trying hard to come to terms with what had just happened. The whole complex was full of his fragrance. Not just the room, not just the corridor. The whole institute was full of his fragrance. As if in a trance, I walked towards the ICU. Nobody was there, and as I was standing there, lost, one uncle came out of the ICU and asked me if I wanted to have Guruji's darshan one last time. I went inside. Guruji was on a hospital bed. I held his feet, which were sockless, with both my hands and put my head on them for one last time. At Empire State, Guruji had always worn socks. And I had wondered if I would ever get a chance to hold his feet when they were not clad in socks. I had thought that such a blessed moment would never come. At the very last moment, Maharaj had fulfilled this cherished desire too. But it came with so much sorrow. We all hoped Guruji would get up, that this was his Leela. We thought that he loved his Sangat so much, he would not leave them. Looking back, he never did. I had his last darshan in the physical form on May 26, 2007, the Saturday before May 31st. Devotees were taking Agya to go home, and I must have been 8th or 9th in the line, with as many devotees behind me. Guruji leaned to the left, looked at me and said, Commander, go home. I would have loved to touch his feet, but because of his Agya, I bowed from a distance, did not even gaze at him, and walked away with absolutely no idea of what Maharaj had planned for himself and his Sangha. For quite some time during the preceding months, we had heard talks about Guruji's plans to go. In fact, in May 2007, he told a number of Sangat that he was here only up to the end of the month. I, like most others, assumed that Guruji would perhaps move to Punjab, where he was known to be very happy and relaxed. That was clearly not the case when he was in Delhi. I shared my thoughts with my wife that we would not be able to see him every Saturday. Instead, we would go to Punjab at least once a month. My wife agreed. I also remember how Guruji had responded to a couple who came to Guruji towards the very end of May. Guruji asked them if this was their first visit, and they said yes. They were late in coming to him, he pronounced. He was going. The Sangat around him asked him where he was going, but he did not answer the question. Later, it all added up. The memory of Guruji leaning to the side, looking at me and ordering me to go home is still indelibly etched on my mind. I regret that I could never get to touch his feet and press them as I was wont to do, but I'm happy that he called out my name. Now I ask myself why I hadn't looked up for that one eye contact at what was going to be our last moment together. This habit of keeping my eyes low and not looking at Maharaj had cost me dear, so to say. This and not resting my head on his feet one last time haunts me to date. I asked Guruji why he had not allowed it, even as I console myself with the thought that he called me out, saying, Commander, for quite some time, the devotees grieved. For my wife, Guruji came in her dreams on May 30th, 2007. She saw Guruji seated in the center of the hall, not on his asana, but in the very clothes he wore on the very last day. She wanted to sit next to Guruji. Instead, he asked her to go outside. She was not happy, and then Guruji told her again, you go out and do seva. The people who are sitting with me here are sick. She reluctantly went out. Maharaj had gone, and gone without warning. In the starkness of our grief, we felt a huge void. Our world had literally collapsed. There was an unvoiced feeling that this was the end of our beautiful association. Slowly, our perception changed. His fragrance never left us and could be felt at the mandir, in the lawns, in the surrounding environs, even more intensely than ever before. Every gust of the wind would bring it back to reassure us of his presence. It was unforgettable. At Bade Mandir, my wife met a lady devotee, Paul Auntie, who grabbed her and gave her a tight hug, crying and wondering what would happen to her family now that Guruji was gone. We were like young kids whose mother had left them suddenly, all helpless. That night, my wife dreamt she was at a satsang. Guruji appeared from behind a curtain which was close to my wife, looked at him and exclaimed, "Guruji, you are here?" Guruji said, "Then what? You guys are thinking I'm gone? I'm here. I have not gone anywhere else." And that Paul auntie, she was crying. She doesn't know that I'm here. You go and tell her that I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving my Sangha. It was much later that my wife met Paul auntie. She told her what Guruji had proclaimed. Very slowly, devotees realized that Maharaj had not left them. Yes, he just didn't look and feel the way he used to at that time. But the intensity of his presence, everything about him has multiplied manifold. Slowly, the Sangat began to feel normal again. Most devotees got his darshan in their dreams. The devotees who joined the Sangat later began getting blessed at a rate that was phenomenal. Some old devotees like me even wondered why they never had that kind of instantaneous deliverance into faith and kinship with Guruji. In private conversations, the new Sangat often tells us that we, the old Sangat, have been very lucky to have seen Guruji in physical form. That indeed is true. But the old Sangat had connected with Guruji's physical presence and became much attached to it. When this presence was lost, it was as if we had lost one of our parents. The realism of his physicality is not something that can be made up for as long as we are operating via our physical body. For most of us, the opportunity of being near him, to be in the same room, breathing the very air he breathed, to be able to touch his feet, to be able to listen to his voice, to have him look at us with love and grace is extremely hard to let go. In a certain sense, we, the old Sangat, live with this sense of loss. The new Sangat has always connected to the divine, to Lord Shiva, without having these memories to grab. Though his leap into the beyond took us by surprise, in retrospect, it is clear that Guruji had planned it well in advance. First, around year 2005, when I was taking his leave, Maharaj told me to write down my satsang and hand it over to Sumit Chetra uncle. I did not know what it was meant for, but I dutifully complied. Very soon we realized that a granth was being compiled with experiences of Sangha. Guruji had chosen to be included. The satsangs were compiled into a book titled Light of Divinity, which came out on Guruji's birthday in year 2007. It is his abiding blessing for all of us and future generations of devotees. But this was very unusual because mentioning Maharaj in print or electronic media was not permitted till then. Second, his exhortation to us to bring more devotees to him to bless had a significance. An announcement was made that Guruji wanted to bless even more Sangat, and we should get new Sangat to connect with Guruji. We should do satsangs and bring people to Maharaj so that he could bless them. He wanted to bless as many as he could. As old Sangat, we found that Empire State was getting crowded with devotees. and we were getting edged out. New devotees took up the ground floor hall where Guruji sat, and old devotees were sent to the first, depriving them of darshan, and were asked to come infrequently. As more and more people came in, the old devotees were squeezed out. An incentive was given to them. They could come more than once if they were accompanied by a new Sangha. We would strive to get hold of people, share our satsangs, and have them come to Guruji, enticing them with an offer of an out-of-the-world langar. Finally, the third indication was a yearly calendar that was distributed to the Sangat for the very first time. Rashmi Singh auntie had been requesting Guruji Maharaj to permit her to print calendars for the Sangat every year since 2002 onwards. Guruji never gave his permission all those years, and that was that. Early in the year 2007, one day in Empire State, she got 4 identical sarups of Guruji and requested Maharaj to sign each of them on the front. Guruji happily obliged by signing all of them with blessings always, Guruji. She later used one of those 4 signed sarups to print 2 calendars for her personal use and brought these to Maharaj for his blessing. Guruji Maharaj was very pleased with the way the calendars had turned out. He then sought Rashmi Singh auntie's opinion about printing them in large numbers for distribution amongst his Sangha. Exactly what auntie had been unsuccessfully requesting since the past 5 years. She got the calendars printed, and for the first time they were distributed amongst the Sangat on Shivratri day, strictly 1 per family. Moreover, the calendar's distribution continued up to perhaps April-May 2007. We know now that Maharaj's change of mind was clearly not a coincidence. He planned it. The widely used iconic signatures, blessings always Guruji, that are so popular among Sangat these days, belong to that very calendar of 2007. On the one hand, we do not have Guruji in his physical form with us today. On the other, we continue to feel his presence around us all the time. Additionally, we have his Sangat, his beautiful memories, and this seva of sharing our divine moments with Guruji, with those who came to Guruji's Sharan later. Guruji is still here. His aura is here. His blessings are here. They haven't gone. Guruji did not hold our hand to let go of it. Once we realized this, the pain slowly eased off. It took a long time, but it eased off. His physical presence has gone, but he continues to live in our hearts and holds the reins of our chariots in his divine hands. That alone keeps us going on the right path. That is indeed a huge blessing and the only thing that matters. An episode in the Mahabharata illustrates this the best. When the great war was over, with the Pandavas emerging victorious, Krishna asked Arjuna to dismount from his chariot first. Arjuna, out of sheer arrogance, he had won the war after all, felt his charioteer should get off first and then help the victorious warrior dismount. He conveyed as much to Krishna. The Lord demurred, saying that today Arjuna would have to get off first, this time being an exception. He reluctantly complied, and then Krishna alighted from his chariot, which immediately went up in flames. It was gutted and reduced to ashes. Krishna then explained to Arjuna that Arjun's chariot had long been reduced to ashes. Such was the severity of the attack it had come under. The weapons that had assailed it were formidable. As long as he was sitting on it, the Lord explained, it held together. If he had alighted from the chariot first, Arjun would have met the fate of the chariot. This story holds a mirror before us. Our body is the chariot and we reside. As long as Guruji is also sitting on this chariot holds together. The struggles we have faced would have reduced us to nothing. But since Guruji is controlling, guiding, and protecting it, the chariot behaves normally and stays on track. Just don't let the Guru dismount your chariot and you will be okay. He is here by your side, the ultimate supreme power. My feeling is that Guruji Maharaj left his physical form only to move and live inside our hearts permanently, thus ensuring he is never away from his Sangat even for a moment, always holding the reins of our chariot. We are so fortunate. My wife and I often ask ourselves how different our life has become since we took refuge in Guruji's lotus feet. How our quality of life has become immeasurably better. How happiness has come to our very doors. How we have become prosperous, healthy, and socially respected. How our children are doing well. All out of the sheer power of His grace. Had we not come to His door, our lives would have languished stale and damp, hurting and hurtful in some dark corner. Every single time we ask ourselves this question, no matter how we are situated in life at that moment, we find that He is blessing us. His fragrance always comes to us. It reassuringly tells us, my children, I'm here. He's the one who keeps us going. Does that mean we do not have any problems and issues to resolve? Far from it. We face challenges on a daily basis and fight our way through. Having said that, there's a difference between then and now. We now have the very reassuring and benign presence of Maharaj in and around us. That allows us to face with confidence whatever destiny throws at us. We move to the next chapter, how His grace makes light of karma. It is a truism with devotees that Guruji takes care of 90% of their karma. A meager 10% is left to handle, and we find even that hard to handle. Still, the Guru makes that karmic ride easy to bear. Say you are fated to eat a kilo of red chili. The punishment must be borne. If your Guru is with you, then he will add 1 spoon of chili to a dish of chili paneer, spicy cottage cheese every day and have you eat it with naan. Thus the Guru makes your karma palatable. Devotees wonder why. As puppets in the hand of the divine, they accumulate karma. How is it that we become responsible for actions purportedly initiated controlled and executed by the divine. Saint Tulsidas also wrote as much as Ramcharitmanas. Koi soi jo Ram rachi rakha, ka kari tarak padha wahi sakha. Translation: everything happens as per the will of Ram. There is nothing to be gained by deliberating on it. As usual, Guruji always simplified complex matters. In a late night chat with General Kapoor, Guruji asked him what he knew of various religions. And the general admitted to knowing very little because he was a military man. Guruji reassured him and then rapidly recited divine axioms from the major religions and asked him what he had understood. When the general could only shrug in helplessness, Guruji told him not to worry if he knew nothing, because it did not matter. Guruji then summarized the essentials, that all religions are one and the same. God is one and all are his children. Thus, if we are able to do good for someone, we should go ahead and do it. It is okay and acceptable if we can't. Just make sure that we do not cause harm to anyone, that we do not become the reason for another's sorrow. We should not be responsible for anyone's tears, pain, or suffering. As long as a person helps others when possible and does no harm to anyone, then that's all one needs to know about religion. Of course, one should set apart time to connect with the divine creator to express gratitude for all the blessings received. There is no better discourse on karma than that of Gita. The Gita is the story of two brotherly clans, the 5 Pandavas and their 100 cousins, the Kauravas, led by Duryodhana, fighting for the kingdom. It is seen as the battle between the good and the evil. Lord Krishna stands on the side of good with the Pandavas. His army is with the Kauravas. At the commencement of the battle, Arjun refuses to fight. This episode that sets up the discourse of the Gita is known as the Vishada Yoga of Arjun. When Arjun sees his cousins ranked against him on the field of battle, he is dismayed and objects to them that those he is fighting against are his family. He turns to Krishna, who has taken up the key role of his charioteer, and says he doesn't want to kill his brothers, uncles, grandfathers, and teachers. He won't wage war against those to whom he has ties by blood. So saying, Arjun sits disconsolately in the chariot, keeping aside his famous bow, the Gandhi. Krishna, who is also Arjun's guru, has to prepare a reluctant disciple to go to war. And this war is not just Arjun's alone. This is a struggle of our own lives too. Krishna has several strategic replies ready. First, he tells Arjun that this war is his to fight because, as a prince of the royal line, a Kshatriya, a warrior, it is his duty to fight. Second, Adharma requires a retort. His kingdom has been wrongfully usurped and, despite efforts at reconciliation, denied to his brothers. Third, the Kauravas have aggressively challenged them, and as the warrior par excellence of the Pandavas, he has to take up arms. The joys of heaven await the warrior whether he fights from the losing side or the winning. Arjun counters by saying that he does not want the rewards of doing his duty. He doesn't want heaven, nor does he want the kingdom. He does not want to have the blood of his own kin on his hands. That is his justification. Krishna tells Arjun that he only appears to have a choice. In reality, he doesn't. The divine has already drawn the entire shape of the scenario. The battle will happen. Arjun will fight. All that remains for Arjun is to choose why he wants to fight and the state of mind he enters the battle with. If he thinks he will be fighting his relatives and will incur sin and bad karma for killing them, then says Krishna, he will indeed be killing his relatives and will accumulate sin. If he thinks he will be doing his duty, the duty of a Kshatriya to protect his people and his kingdom from an unjust leadership or an incursion, then he will be doing his duty and be rewarded appropriately for fulfilling his duty. Krishna then shows him yet another angle of approach. Arjun can accept this battle as the divine will. Then all he will be doing is obeying the orders of the divine. He will not be fighting for good, for vanquishing evil, or for performing his righteous duty. He will just be submitting himself to the will of the divine as represented in the words, the hukum of the Lord. The beauty is that in such obedience, Arjun will not be fighting for rewards. So he would escape the noose of karma, which becomes binding only when one is entangled in its supposed fruits. Krishna then shows him that the war Arjun is thinking of not participating in has already happened. Not only does the disciple have no choice, but he has already participated in it. With this vision that the Lord grace gives him, Arjun comes to terms with what is his destiny. What he was expected to do had already happened as far as the divine was concerned. Arjun was neither the killer nor the defender. Both the killers and the killed were two sides of the same coin of divine Leela. In each individual warrior, it was the divine that had fought, lost, and won. Arjun thus realized that he was not the doer. The divine within was the agency of all actions. For Arjun, it was Krishna all the way. Just as for us, it should be Guruji all the way. We have nothing to do with karma. It does not even touch our hands, provided we realize that Guruji is working through us. We are not the doers. Guruji is. Basically, we accumulate karma, good or bad, not because of what we do, but because of our identification with what we do and the intention with which we perform our actions. An apparently excellent cause with an evil motive cannot lead to good karma. The burden of karma is subtle to determine, but interest in doership can and will give you the burden of karma. Suppose there is a saint who is shown to telling the truth. He is meditating in the forest when an animal walks past him. Minutes later, a hunter goes past asking if his prey had crossed by. The saint now has the choice of telling the truth and condemning the animal to death or lying to save a life. The intention is most important. If the saint wanted to save a life, then telling a lie would not matter. His telling the truth would have made him responsible for the killing of an innocent animal. Do you think in that situation, being truthful would have added to his account of virtues? Karma is like the clothes we wear. While our body represents the soul, the quality of the clothes identifies us as a person for everybody else. If I wear nice clothes, I'm identified as a nice person. If I wear dirty clothes, I'm not identified as a nice person. If I wear body hugging clothes, they feel like an integral part of my body. I'll be identified with them closely and they will become an extended part of my body. If I wear them loosely, then this problem does not arise because I will feel detached from my clothes. Whenever I want, I can remove my dress and put it away. So the key is to wear our karma like loose clothes. We are wearing them, yet we are not carrying them with us. They are not an extension of our body. That feeling comes when we stop identifying ourselves with what we do as compared to what we feel inside. We will only start feeling more when our Guruji will reside inside us. That will happen when we cede control to him. We will still go about doing our karma, still carrying our karma like wearing loose clothes, because that is every human being's lot. But we will not be identified by our karma. We will be defined by our Guru. That is why the Lord said that we should give up everything before coming to him. Have you wondered how surrender can happen? We start by disowning our karma. Simply saying, I'm not the one who does these things. It is my Guruji who makes me do them. The moment we take away our authority on what we do, we stop doing it. From we doing it to it happening to us is a very subtle line that divides the two. And that line is sketched by what you think. If we think ourselves as doers, then these are our karmas. Then we will be held accountable for them. If we think we are doing our duty and we do it well, we get a reward. But if we think we do nothing, because all that is being done is being controlled by Guruji, then we actually do nothing at all. We will not be held accountable for what happens through ourselves. The same action can lead to punishment or reward, depending on how you associate yourself with it. A doctor conducts surgery on a patient and is in the process, the patient dies. But you cannot accuse the doctor of killing that person, can you? He was trying to save the patient's life, but he could not. If the same doctor knew that he was not good enough to treat this patient and still decided to undertake the surgery with the knowledge of his limitations, he would be held accountable. So this same karma can have different attributes and lead to different results. In our case, we can simply leave all of this doership, intentions, thoughts, and the action itself to Guruji, so that all our karmas become an offering to him. Where may be my actions good, bad, or ugly, I don't care. My Guru is the boss. I don't know what he makes me do because I do nothing. Whatever I do is because of what my Guruji makes me do. That thought is surrender. Read again what Lord Krishna said to Arjuna. Give up everything and come to me. We too should give up all other support and reach out for Guru's support only. As the Shabad beautifully puts it. एक तकिया भरोसा तेरे चरना का और सब ढाया ढेरिया. I have let go of all other supports. In fact, Guruji is my only support. All the rest are at best time-bound and illusory. Surrender means that I have done all I could do and now I have taken refuge at Guruji's lotus feet. I have done away with every other support in my life. I have come to Guruji with no backup. I have no one else to go to. Now my Guru knows that if he does not take care of me, then I'm done. For me, there is no alternative to Guruji. I go where my Guruji takes me. I am where my Guruji is at any given time. And Guruji is my destiny. We all are like the bogies in a train. They are tied behind the engine and they go wherever the engine takes them. Bogies don't have the luxury to choose where they go. They can choose the engine. Of course, if they get hooked to the wrong engine, they would reach the wrong destination. Briefly, what is important is our intention. What happens in our life is controlled by a supreme power. That divine in us does what he does. If we think we are doing it, then we are doing it. And we will either pay for it or be rewarded for it. If we think we are simply obeying a divine order, then we will have nothing to do whatsoever with actions and their consequences. It is as simple as that. That is why inner purity is important. No matter what we do it with a clean heart. Guruji emphasized this when he quoted the ancient maxim which says, Man changa to nal meke mein ganga. If your heart is pure, then even tap water becomes as pure as the water from the sacred Ganga. Don't associate yourself with your actions. Offer each action to the Lord or Guru every time saying, as you wish. Let your wish prevail. Lord Krishna has outlined a simple tactic by which we can do away with the consequences of karma. But what about karma which have already been committed? This world of ours and our destiny or prarabdha is a byproduct of karma. A simple couplet from Ramcharitmanas of Saint Tulsidas puts it brilliantly. Karma pradhan vishwa rachi rakha, jo jai kare so tas phal chakha. As we sow, so shall we reap. The seeds we put in the land will grow into fruits. We cannot plant a cactus and expect mangoes. As the Manas hints, this earthly world is where our karmas come due and have to be settled. Our accounts get settled in the physical world because actions take place in a physical setting. After our dues are settled here, we progress quickly in the spiritual world. In the military, each promotion must precede a tough and demanding tenure on the battlefield, face to face with the enemy. Our excellent performance in peace postings will matter little if the frontline tenure ends up in a fiasco. Our performance matters the most when our life as well as the life of those we command is at grave risk. This earthly existence of ours is akin to a posting on the front line. Our motivation in coming here is to settle our accounts as much as we can, do better, improve, get closer to our chosen Ishta or Guru. We have volunteered to come down here to make things right, not to repeat mistakes, and then promise to return once our karmas are accounted for and settled. Our performance in this physical plane will decide if we get a promotion or demotion in this spiritual world, a peace posting, so to say. On our own, it is a near impossible task with the great risk of ending up worse off than before. One comes to settle karmas but ends up accumulating more. The lucky ones are those who are taken into refuge by Guru, who is capable of taking on their karmas. He helps his devotee navigate the minefield in the war zone, all the while holding his hand. He first makes his devotee blessings ready by settling his earthly account and then blesses them. This process of becoming blessings ready will include enduring some pain and suffering under Guruji's guidance and watchful protection. The extent of the suffering, of course, depends on the devotee's karmic backlog. On that account, even the best of the best are on a bit of a sticky wicket. Each one of us volunteers to this field posting for a single purpose, to get rid of the karmic load. But Once one is born in this world, one forgets all the promises made to the Lord. There's a Shabad that Guruji made us listen to at Empire State many times. The essence of it was that you have forgotten all the tall promises you made to the Lord or the Guru. While in the womb, you promised you were going to take his name, sing his praise, purify yourself, and do all the right things. And look at you now. You are in a mess. You have forgotten all that. Thankfully, we have Guruji. He will not let us make mistakes. If he sends us out on field posting, he'll make sure we don't do silly things. This is exactly what Sri Krishna told Arjuna when the disciple asked him, Lord, what happens to your disciples, your devotees, when they deviate from the right path and make mistakes? Do they fall out of grace? What do you do with them? Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that he does not let his devotees fall from grace. A true guru is payback for the disciples' account. When Guruji suffers for us, he is paying from his own account for everything that we have done because we are bankrupt. He settles our account. It is like having a line of credit from our Guru's account to our account. No matter how much is spent, it will be replenished. As long as we are a devotee in a state of surrender to the Guru. Having said that, we also need to take responsibility for our subsequent deeds. Guruji takes so much on himself because he cannot bear to see us suffering. Our Guruji is the Supreme Lord, the divine light, and he holds our hand through thick and thin. He will ensure that our karmic account is settled as per his plan and not in accordance with our efforts. All we need to do is to hand over control to him. How do we settle our karmic account? Good karma is like money deposited in a bank account, while bad karma is like a debt. Imagine that every time we do something good, our deposit goes up. And every time we make a mistake, we spend the money we have. We may end up spending so much money that there is not only zero balance in the account, but actually we owe the bank. That is where the problem arises. It has to be paid back. The account has to be settled. This settlement of karmic debt is chiefly done through suffering. Even people come in our lives to settle their own karmic dues as much as we enter theirs to settle ours. Only the Guru enters our lives to settle our karmic account, not his. He enters our lives to make us blessing ready for spirituality. Another way of cancelling karmic debt is by creating a huge positive balance through selfless seva. For example, if we serve the elderly and lessen their sufferings, we will receive their blessings. Their suffering has given them the capacity to bless us. Similarly, a suffering poor can also bless us too. Ability to bless stays with those who endure suffering. A mother's blessing are more valuable because her suffering is usually more than that of a father. That is why mothers are held in great reverence in our lives. In a way, being a woman itself involves so much suffering. A woman in our life, when loved, respected, and cared for, has a unique ability to make us blessings ready. One of the simplest ways to accumulate good karma and pay off our bad karma is to respect, love, and take care of women in our lives, be it our mothers, wife, our sister, our daughter, our neighbor, or women in our Sangha. Guruji used to say that he blessed aunties first because a lady devotee always thinks of her entire family. Male devotees think of themselves first. A father thinks that if he is blessed, he can take care of the family. A mother believes her children, her husband, her parents and in-laws should be blessed first. that our suffering is secondary. Since we have come to life already with so much karmic debt, it is important to not add more to it by asking Guruji to meet our demands. If we do not ask Guruji for anything, then we don't need to account for anything that we may receive as blessings. Guruji will fulfill a need or a beneficial desire through his blessings, even if we don't ask for it. If we seek a reward even for our good karma or seva, the fruit will be limited and perishable. A blessing is permanent. A Shabad Guruji made us listen to explains this point. A pious person did tapasya or penance for 100 years. The divine was happy and spoke to the tapasvi offering a boon. The tapasvi straightaway demanded a reward for his 100 years penance. The divine counseled him to think again. Do you want the reward for your penance or do you want my blessings? The deluded tapasvi insisted on the reward. The divine was about to grant it when the stone on which the ascetic had been sitting all this while acquired a human form and spoke up. It demanded that the tapasvi first settle its dues for letting him sit on itself for 100 years. Remember, every fruit we earn is not solely due to our efforts. There are many individuals and conditions that play their part to make it happen. The tapasvi quickly realized his folly and settled for the divine blessings. Because if he had to settle all the accounts he owed out of his penance, there would be little left for him. As a disciple, we have to let Guruji handle all our matters. For that, we have to give up self-interested actions and not ask the Guru. If the Guru is happy, he will simply give us his blessing, and that energy will manifest as whatever we may need. Therefore, all we have to do is to be with the Guru. Let the divine in us connect to the Guru and let it be. During my formative years, I received most of my spiritual understanding from my own namesake uncle, Shri Rajkumar Sharma ji. A highly evolved and awakened soul, he was my father's age, and we shared an informal Guru-Shishya connection. Whenever I was back home on vacation, we would be together for hours, discussing the great lore of spirituality as passed down by our sages. This association lasted for over 2 decades and formed the backbone of my limited experience with the divine. One day he shared his complete learning of the divine in one sentence. He told me that after a lifetime going through the scriptures, sitting with the spiritual gurus and meditating, he finally understood one thing. There was no need to go through this process in the first place because there was really nothing to understand. He had to finally surrender to the divine, something he could have done a long time ago, right at the beginning. His only advice to me was to stop running around seeking knowledge and understanding of the divine. There was nothing to understand, but everything to experience. Just surrender to the Supreme and let him take care of everything. It will happen when it has to happen. And he was so right. The divine happened to me when I was called by Guruji Maharaj to his divine presence on February 18th, 2001. With that, my mind's quest for knowledge ended and my soul's experience with the divine began. Guruji advised his devotees to hand over the reins of their horse to him and he would always guide it straight. The horse is our intellect, our mind, the vehicle of our body. If we give the control to Guruji, we will think straight, act straight, and we will not accumulate any negative karma. As a result, we would become blessings ready and qualified to board his ship, traveling out of samsara to reach him. In invocatory verse. The Brihadanayaka Upanishad gives voice to the devotees' aspirations for this journey. Asto ma sadgamaya, tamso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityor ma amritam gamaya. Take us from untruth to truth, from darkness to light, and from the bondage of mortality to our eternal freedom. That is, devotion takes us from ignorance, agyan, to knowledge, gyan, and from separation from Guruji, a state of duality, to merger with Guruji, this singularity. Whence we become a part of him. Karma controls one's position in this endless cycle of life, birth and rebirth, hell and heaven. A surrender to the Guru pulls devotees out of this cycle and accords him a permanent place at the Guru's lotus feet in perpetuity. May we all be with Guruji Maharaj always. He will never let go of us. Have trust and let him drive our chariot, and we will be just fine. Jai Guruji.